And
Recording
then
in past life, man.
Yeah.
I hit a record button. Okay. I'll do the summary later because I wasn't gonna do a 2 hour 17 movie and write the summary
Okie dokie.
for this. Well, we'll just leave the spot where that happens.
This should be number 73.
That sounds correct.
Is
I mean,
that
I
right?
can confirm for you if you'd like. That's correct. It's number 73.
Okay.
In at number 73, Shaka when the walls fell.
That's right, Darmok.
It was
Welcome.
shocking when the walls fell. Like
That was a
deliberate ignorance.
shaka. A real
Deliberate
shaka.
ignorance.
They built a bad wall. That's what happened. If they built a good wall, that's not, wouldn't have crumbled like that.
I think they built a bad country.
My the cello I played in high school and university and stuff was from East Germany. It was cheap because the just opened up.
Mhm.
They
Hey
just
everyone,
learned.
it's Films and Filth. It's the Citizen Kane of podcasting. This is Matt here.
It's Mark.
Das ist Luke.
I was wondering if
Yep.
Mark was gonna be second because Mark was drinking something. I was like, well, there's no fourth person here, so it could be in the other order, and it doesn't sound that weird.
No,
I
I,
can
I
swallow.
like it's Matthew Mark Luke, I think.
No, that
I
makes sense. I was just wondering about the drink that was being drunk.
I
I
can
wasn't
swallow
paying
really
attention, so
fast. If you really put me under pressure, I can swallow really, really fast.
nice.
You barely even know what happened to you.
Today, it's the lives of others. Someone will know what happened to you because they were watching you. Um,
Hmm.
did anybody? I mean, I don't mean this to sound snarky, but did anybody know this movie existed before we saw it on our list?
Mm-mm.
No.
No. Okay. So, I mean, I guess it sort of kind of goes into the Capernaum slot of, foreign movie. Although, I mean, we don't understand living in East Germany, but I feel like it looks a little more like the
Oh,
world we live in than say, the slums of Beirut. So I guess it
it,
has that where it
Yeah, and
feels like the world you've lived in.
it felt closer to like European spy movies that I've seen.
Yeah, yeah,
it,
very droll spy movie. But I mean, not again. I'm not saying that
uh,
snarky. It's not James Bond, is it?
No, it's
technically,
it's like Tinker Tailor type stuff.
Right,
yes.
which I
It's
still
like
haven't
technically,
watched, but I have on Blu-ray.
uh, I think that was better than this, but this is technically it's like what would happen if everybody has to spy on everyone all the time. So when you outsource all the spying, it doesn't work very well because you don't
Mm.
have a professional like James Bond spying on people. This did remind me about this reminded me of being on Facebook with a whole lot of leftists about 10 years ago. There's a lot of people airing each other out like for
I guess that's
for
about
no
the time
screw.
I stopped putting anything political ever on Facebook.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I'm not saying that people didn't get called out who deserved it now and then, but there definitely was sort of a feeling that there were a bunch of stakes that there weren't. There were no stakes.
It is
So,
interesting though, in 2012 or something, I would feel like okay making a political post on Facebook, whereas I mean, I don't even post on Facebook except for say podcasts, maybe, and music that I make.
well, I mean, Trump people, I mean, sorry, not whatever. What am I saying? Like MAGA in general has made it so much easier to be political on Facebook because you can just go, yeah, look at these guys, and everybody's like, hell yeah, these guys suck, and it's just
Well,
not.
you didn't really say anything
It's
particularly inflammatory there just now. I mean,
no, I didn't. I'm still trained to not. It's like I was trained by Left Book to not do that.
Hmm.
And anyway, to not give anyone any incriminating evidence. And what happened to a lot of I'm going to keep this short because Facebook was terrible then and it's terrible now, but a lot of those people just ended up pivoting to doing dad jokes all the time because dad jokes you can't offend anyone with them. So it just turns into this thing where everyone's just spouting dad jokes all the time.
The right can be funny too.
I've just always posted
Sure.
whatever I think,
That's
and
good.
it
That's
offends
healthy.
people, and I don't really care.
Hmm.
You've heard the number of politicians I've threatened with death on this podcast.
Yeah, I think it's healthy to work through that, to work through all the death threats.
The
Just do it.
You wouldn't do
so
well in East Germany though.
I'd obviously not heard of this film. But reading the Wikipedia, it seems like it did have a bit of an impact.
It is very beloved. A lot of actors in this took this job getting like 20% of the regular pay, and it ended up being a very low budget movie just because so many people wanted to work on this. It was this
Mhm.
guy's first film. I don't understand it. I don't totally understand how he got all that to
Well, I
happen.
guess
But
we hadn't seen this kind of you know, like Stasi stuff in a film previously. I guess was the thing. Germans don't necessarily like to make movies about their history.
yeah,
Yeah,
and
well, I remember Downfall was a big deal at the time because it was like the first time the Germans had depicted the Nazis, right?
Right.
I mean,
Um,
I don't know if it's the first time. It was sort of the first time in a prestige
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
film that people, you know,
Oh yeah, I saw reading Wikipedia, it was like Stasi had been covered by like comedies and spoofs in Germany, but this was the first serious drama to deal with it.
yeah.
But I'm also thinking about after release, like, did you read about the like Israeli spies?
I don't know if I got
no.
that. I
There
will
was like 50 Israeli spies who basically renounced working for Israel, and this film was one of the things they listed as like inspiring them to make that decision. When they
Wow.
said like the state of Israel does not recognize the difference between a regular Palestinian and one who intends on violence, so we're going to stop spying for you. And it was like 50 top Mossad agents or something.
Wow.
okay,
Okay.
that's
Why isn't
effective.
that in the trivia? Is IMDb biased? Did they leave that
um,
out of the trivia?
American website, very possibly.
I think I forget who owns it. It's like IGN or something.
Yeah, I'm double checking here, and we don't really have much about that. Huh, interesting. See, I did look at the wiki.
Oh, it's
So
owned by Amazon.
I came
Of
in last
course.
I came in
Oh well,
last
yeah.
night. Yeah. I came in last night. I had to start at 11, so it's kind of intimidating to start the 2 hour, 17-minute film at 11, which means I did watch this all in like one fell swoop.
Mm.
Um, and had a quick look at the wiki and then got more bummed out because Ulrich Muhi, I guess that's how you say his name, the
Mhm.
lead or spy, like pretty much died immediately after making this movie, and somehow that bummed me out. I don't know why.
Well,
Hmm.
I mean, his arc was kind of like you watch him do an objectively good thing, and he basically just sort of
It ends up in
Do
the
you mean the
is.
basement.
actor, Matt, or do you mean the
The
character, the man who inspired the character?
the actor, but it still kind
Yeah.
of just makes you feel like, oh, he got, you know, railroaded and then he died,
Mhm.
which, yeah.
Hmm.
And also he said that he based that character on like he knew people when he was an actor in East Germany. He knew people who were Stasi, or he found out people he knew had been like ratting him out, spying on him. So he
Hmm.
based this. And there was a quote that said something like, "How did you figure out how to play that character?" And he just said, "I remembered," which
Well,
is,
play what you
you
know, I
know,
guess. Hmm.
he's great. He's yeah, he's and he was also was the victim dad in Funny Games,
Yeah, I
which is
guess that's the other thing. Like, you know, when you're watching a foreign film and you don't know any of the actors and someone stands out, I guess that's a notable standout as opposed
Mhm.
to
Hmm.
Hollywood films where,
Well,
you know, you tend to already recognize half the faces even if you don't know their
the
names.
weird thing I had with this film was a lot of the actors looked a bit like actors I knew. So the main character kind of looked like budget German Kevin Spacey. And then like
Huh.
the
Yeah.
sort of the
They
minister,
got the real thing now in Germany.
the villain of the piece, the minister kind of looked like budget Stellan Skarsgård. And it's
Yeah.
like so in my head I kept if they weren't on screen, I was just overwriting them with the more famous actor I was imagining.
Is it Germany Spacey started making movies again? Maybe it's Italy.
Something
Italy
like that.
sounds more likely, but I don't know.
Yeah, and some European countries started making movies again.
But
It seemed
I really liked that main actor and his sort of quiet, sort of just sweet little man. Like not this like big brash James Bond hero, but just, as they say repeatedly in the film, just a good man.
I was worried this was going to become schmaltzy, and
I
thankfully
feel
it
like it
didn't.
did a bit.
It did, but I guess what I was worried about was that he was going to bust in and be like, "I'm going to help you
Oh yeah,
here."
yeah. There
You
was no
know,
like
it
face
didn't
to
do that.
face sort of,
Um,
but it did
yeah,
end on that incredibly cheesy line and then a freeze frame.
Yeah, and
and never end on a freeze frame.
and the ending was, I thought, really clunky because there was sort of a thing where a guy explains your career is over, you're going to be in a basement, and then it shows him in a basement, and then then it shows the wall, then it says the walls fell, and he leaves the basement, and it's sort of like I feel like that could have been handled a little more
Just
Yeah, like
showing
two
you it's
years.
not an empty threat.
It was like 4 years later, and then 2 minutes later, 2 years later, and then 2 minutes later, 2 years later again.
Yes, yes, all of that. But I mean, yeah, I was worried that
I guess
when I
you could have
started,
done all of that in more of a montagey fashion,
yeah,
and it might
or
have felt
just
less
I guess the
clunky.
movie was somewhat obsessed just with the fact that most of the meat of the movie takes place before Gorbachev is
Well, yeah,
elected,
most
and
it's
they really want you to
incredibly
know where it is on the timeline, you know?
it's like really
yeah,
slow paced and takes place over like a matter of weeks or something, and then squeezes like 10 years into the last 20 minutes.
Well, with that
yeah.
said, I guess I should go ahead and wheel out the entire plot, which will come later because I went to bed at 2.
Very good.
Okay. So yeah, how much do you know about the East German scene? I guess I've read a book or two, I guess, but that was a while ago. I mean, I guess we get more like Soviet stories in pop culture and stuff. We don't get the Stasi in
Yeah,
East Germany so much.
Yeah, not much because my lifetime has mostly been a unified Germany.
yeah. I don't feel like we get a lot of history about East Germany, and that probably there
We
are probably
definitely
several
did cover
reasons.
it in school, but not
Yeah,
a lot.
I was in the fourth grade when the Berlin Wall went down. I do remember us having like a special like German history course. We also had German class though. So yeah. Oh yeah,
Mm.
that's the year where my teacher actually like probably was a Nazi. She was from Germany and she's just the right age to be a Hitler Youth, and she acted like one too.
wow. When the wall fell, did you see her in the corner like clenching her fist, going like, "Ugh."
No, I tried to avoid her. Yeah.
No, I don't think
She was
she
a
would have been
meanie.
anti the wall going down.
I don't, I don't
The
know,
Nazis
man.
didn't like the Soviets very much.
Just anything for chaos. Well, or for too much order. For too much order. I
No,
guess that would be
not
too
enough
much order.
order.
Yeah.
Yeah, not enough order. Too much order. Order in the court. Anyway, yeah, I don't know. I feel like we were mostly told stories of Soviet Russia, and I think that was because of a certain romantic notion that they were the enemy, and
Hmm.
and like we send them jeans and Pepsi and Def Leppard, and they send us Tetris, and then then the Glasnost, and then we get Hatris. You
I
know,
never got Hatris.
it's pretty hard to
And
play
then
actually.
30 years later, Alexei Pajitnov actually makes some money from Tetris.
Oh,
Yeah.
did he
Oh
finally make some
God.
money? Good for him.
Yeah, there's like
Uh,
he has a Tetris company now, and he actually
yeah,
does his
but
thing.
still probably not as much as the Nintendo executive or the
It
Nintendo
probably
America
took him
executive who
10
flew
years
over
to
there.
actually start caring.
I don't know. He probably cared. He was
I
probably
don't know.
afraid to care.
No, I was reading all our base our belong whatever it is, but it's a video game history book where they did interview him. And sorry, I am quoting him halfway. Where
Oh,
since he was still in a communist functioning economy, it took till the early '90s where he kind of noticed he wasn't getting money for this.
wow. Well,
Well,
yeah,
and
I
then
mean,
like Nintendo wise, Miyamoto still doesn't like make like he makes enough. He makes decent money, but he's on like $1 million a year, and he created Mario, Donkey Kong, and Zelda.
yeah.
He can't afford
Like
like 5 whores every day.
no, like that's just not how it works in a Japanese games company.
Do you think that Kojima makes more than Miyamoto?
Probably because he's like head of his own company and stuff.
Yeah,
Even though his games definitely don't make as much.
yeah.
But I'm
Uh,
not opposed to that. I think that's
no,
probably correct.
I
Because
you
even if
know,
he is the director on the game, it's not like he programmed every line of code and put every single disc on a shelf.
yeah, I think that if Kojima, as long as Kojima is paying his staff adequately, and he probably
Hmm.
does, then who cares? Like
Yeah.
it's just but also it's cool to see him constantly posting Instagrams of him hugging George Martin and stuff like that. Wait,
Yeah, and his
George
sausages
Martin
and
is not
stuff.
the right name. Wait,
George
what's
Martin,
the
the
George
Beatles
Miller?
producer,
George Miller. George Miller. Sorry.
the long
Well,
dead
you were
Beatles
thinking,
producer.
I think he
I
was
was thinking
thinking
of
George
George R.
R.
Martin, who is not, I don't think he's friends with Kojima, but he might be friends with Kojima.
You could
You
take
know,
pictures with people you're not friends with.
that's true.
It's
Yeah, but
possible.
Kojima really, really wants you to think he's friends with them, even if he's not.
Yes, absolutely.
I guess my pop culture touchstone for East Germany would be the very American filtered Confessions of a Dangerous Mind.
Oh
I was just
God,
thinking what comes to mind. I mean,
that's
great
not
movie,
even.
but pretty
That's
sure it's
like
not accurate.
No, it's George Clooney taking what's his name at his word when he basically before he died admitted that it was
Chuck
made up.
Barris. Yeah.
Chuck Barris, yeah.
Great movie, by the
Unfortunately,
way.
yes, absolutely. I wish Chuck Barris hadn't admitted it was all lie, but
And that was
it's
like a
so funny.
deathbed confession too, wasn't it? It's like, dude, just
It was
five
close.
more minutes, 5 more minutes, keep your mouth shut
Just
forever.
let us believe. That's like saying Santa Claus isn't real on your deathbed.
What?
No, no, don't worry about it.
Okay.
I mean, I'm saying that he would lie if like he might lie about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but Santa
So
Claus will never die, so it's all good.
He just wanted to
so
take the joy out of your day.
so is it funny that his name is Weasler?
A little bit.
I guess.
Yeah.
Does that make a German pun though?
I kind of don't think so.
Okay. I wanted to talk about his jacket.
He had a cool little jacket.
I thought that was the most
No.
80s goth new wave jacket ever, which was, he'd be the guy on electronic digital percussion. I guess you don't have
Also,
electronic and digital.
the way he wore it all the time did feel like very well observed of just like middle-aged guy who's got one nice piece of clothing.
Yeah.
Well, that's maybe what you would have at East Germany. You know
Yeah.
what? It makes me think of I don't know if you guys watched David Fincher's The Killer from last year, but that's
Nope.
Fassbender's thing. He's like, oh, I go around dressed like a German tourist, so no one pays attention to me or wants to pay attention to me. So it's kind of the same vibe with this guy, although he would. I mean, I guess he's not trying to fade in. Well, he is. He's a
No,
spy.
he is.
But
He's a spy, right?
now I'm wondering why he's wearing that jacket because it stands out. Okay.
I think he's wearing that
Oh.
jacket so that he's not wearing the same uniform as the rest of the cast, and you can tell he's the main character.
Okay. Well, I liked it for
Ah.
sure. If this had been like a blockbuster, people would cosplay with that jacket. I mean, I guess they could anyway, just be the most obscure cosplay possible, which some people love. So,
hmm
The one song that the guy, what was his name, Paul, when he pulls the writer in to talk to him and he turns that music up really loud in case anybody's bugging them and it's like some kind of weird German new wave. That was awesome.
That was
Yeah.
awesome, but it was like
Dryman.
it kind of threw me for a second because I was like, oh yeah, this is a period piece, but then the music starts and you're like, oh yeah, but it's not a period that long ago. Like,
Well, yeah, well, back then you listened to what was out and now we listen to new wave by choice because it's good. So it's like
but I was sort of expecting, like old timey World War II tunes to come on. I'm like, oh yeah, no, we're not. It's not that old.
yeah. I mean, it's interesting because I'm listening to another podcast go over the history of Can and like other krautrock, and that was, very solidly West Germany, but also from way before this.
Pump Up the
And
Jam was like the same year the wall fell, or just after.
yeah,
but I mean, think of the styles of a lot of the Soviet style. Part of the charm of weird early '80s Soviet stuff, and this as well with East Germany is kind of like it's a little bit already back in time. I mean, now when you see North Korea stuff, it's like looks weirdly retro. Just skipping all of the weird repressive crap, but just in general, it looks weirdly retro when you see a modern video of it, right?
Well, that's part of repression, isn't it? Is that you repress art, you repress architecture. I'm not I'm not very well versed in politics of that type, really politics in general. You should never listen to anything I say about politics unless I'm right, but it definitely feels like that part of the oppressive environment of a place like that is that you keep the architecture modest. So, the brutalism in the mid 20th century was supposed to like invoke all the sense of sort of something like that, like a feeling of everything belonging to the people,
Mm.
but it's also very upsetting at the same time.
Mark, did
And
you
many
ever
people,
I'm gonna go theme park dork for a minute here. Did you ever do
sure.
the alien encounter at Disney World?
I don't think so. Where
You'd
was
go.
that?
It was a circular theater. It was in the Magic Kingdom, but which it had a lot of
Oh,
complaints because they couldn't actually get the xenomorph at the time, so it was this other thing. But you go in and they're supposed to teleport an alien. It gets screwed up, and you get a monster alien. The lights go off, and they have effects to make it feel like it's crawling around the room and crawling on you and breathing on
no,
you and stuff. And
I did
little
not do
kids,
that.
little kids would crap themselves. Anyway, it was
Yeah,
originally supposed to be.
Mercy did it, and it traumatized her. By the way.
Yeah, it's
Wow.
a very traumatizing ride. So, but it was originally going to be in Disneyland as part of their new Tomorrowland, which they completely screwed up. But the design, the concept art for it it looked like Rockefeller Center plus brutalism, showing the squashing of humanity. Like it had figures of humans like holding up the building and stuff, and then you'd go in and
Wow.
experience this like super disturbing ride, which that sounded great. But yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I was thinking about with like that brutalist architecture and sort of there was going to be overt, but there is a sense of it. It's wondrous and you can't stand up to it. It's going to crush you, you know?
Mm.
Brutalist buildings will crush
Oh,
you if you try to enter them.
okay. It says that it has roots in 1950s in the UK, so it's not
Yeah, those big
necessarily.
apartment blocks. Well,
Yeah, it's not.
it's
Oh
done
yeah,
for
that was
money,
us
but
rebuilding quickly after everything was bombed.
Yes. I think there was definitely an element of like look how strong we are when we rebuild. Like,
Hmm.
the World Trade Center kind of looked like that. It was like look how strong our society is. Look how rectangular these things are.
I have
But
no idea what the
also
new building looks like there. That's interesting.
it looks kind of generic,
I
honestly.
guess
It's all
that's why I
right.
don't remember what it looks like.
Fine. It's fine. I
Okay.
haven't seen it in person really.
It's
Right.
not
But
like the old ones were the most aesthetically pleasing buildings.
I
No,
liked them,
no.
but I
But
100% understand why you wouldn't like them. And the thing that ticked off Osama bin Laden was a bunch of cool like Moroccan elements, like in the passenger whatever entrance that I never went to that building, so I never saw any of that stuff in person.
I did. I went in 1993. I had a high school trip and I tried to shoot one of my friends like from the roof. I tried to get an angle where it looked like he was like falling off the building, which now seems really like um
Macabre.
Yeah,
yeah. So
yeah, but the thing is that but the weird thing is now every like Wendy's and McDonald's looks like a ripoff of a Frank Lloyd Wright house. So it's just the architecture does weird
I was
cycles
watching
because
a
of how
video
far it
just
goes.
last night on modern architecture and how a lot of modern stuff looks like shit because it looked good as a digital render, but doesn't translate to looking good when they actually build it.
yeah, we're in an
Interesting.
extremely boring phase of architecture, at least from what I see in the States. I don't know.
There's
Japan still
also
builds weird stuff
an
here and there.
element of like stuff isn't really built to human scale.
Hmm.
Stuff is built by architects to show off to other architects for their CV, but it means that for the man on the street, everything is just a giant cube that's not
People
very
need to start
inviting.
building stupid
Um.
buildings again.
Or
Well,
people
there.
just need to build buildings with like windows that are human sized and balconies that are human sized and little elements that are human sized so that when you walk up to it, it feels like it's for you to go into.
Yeah, and maybe gives you some sense of awe or something. There are a few nice
Yeah, but
buildings here.
like
There's
you can go to like Gloucester Cathedral. It
yeah,
fills you with a sense of awe, but it
yeah,
also like it feels inviting that you're allowed in there.
yeah. Yeah,
um,
there's a couple of newer buildings where they've built like greenery into the side of the buildings here, which actually look really cool, and that's like something that should
But
definitely
no,
continue.
I also watched a video on that. Potted plants, great. Greenery built into the building, one of the dumbest things in history.
Interesting. What does
you're
it
not into
does
the
it always
Hanging Gardens of
die?
Babylon?
No, because it's the where are the roots gonna go, dude? How are you gonna water
Hmm.
them all? It's like
I don't
just
know.
just put trees on the ground.
I guess that's why it's a wonder of the world that's gone.
What if I okay, how about what if I put a bunch of dirt on the roof and put a bunch of trees up there?
Yeah, great. As long as it's like potted and not just actually
Okay.
part of the building, because
Cool.
Eventually, the roots are going to go into the building and
You
fuck
can
it
go
up.
dancing on the roof with Al Jarreau in his roof garden.
Yeah, well, I'm not an architect, but if I was, I'm sure I'd probably make something that was circular and not at all practical, and people would be mad at me. Like
Hmm.
we've have I think maybe 4 circular buildings left in Atlanta, and I'm like very angry whenever another one gets torn down.
Well,
Where my
we need
where my
people making
grandparents
weird,
live in
crazy stuff.
Cornwall, there's just all these fairly normal houses, and then just
Mhm.
this one completely circular, looks like a turret of a castle house, and I adore
Oh
it.
man. Oh man. Matt, do you remember the circular building that used to be like Sensational Subs and then Dollar Chinese?
Oh yeah, that place is awesome. But I think they got
Well,
rid of that when
it's
I still.
there.
Oh, it's
No, it's
there. It is
there.
there. Yeah.
This is what it is now. It is now called Shaking Crawfish, and there's a huge sign that's an LED sign that's in all caps that says Shaking Crawfish on top of it.
Nice.
Okay.
And in fact, I'm looking at it. It looks like it says Shaking Carl Fish, like they reversed the A and
Like
the
they
R.
turned Carl into a fish and now you're eating him.
No, maybe that's an old photo, but maybe they fixed it. But
Uh,
yeah, I'll send you a picture. It's pretty great.
as far as this movie, the other thing that I was thinking a lot just in comparison was I watched Chernobyl like last year. Mark, do you
Hmm.
watch Chernobyl? It seems like
I
something you'd
have
watch.
not. I have
Oh,
Okay.
not
you
yet.
definitely it's so up your street.
I know.
Yeah, that's why
I'm.
I'm sitting here like, you watched it, right? No, you didn't. Okay. Anyway, I
Mhm.
like, of course, that is straight. Well, that's still a little blockish, I guess. But yeah, that's a straight, more like, the straight Soviet vibe, right? Bureaucrat vibe.
Oh,
Mhm.
yeah, but yeah, it's Ukraine, so it's still slightly outside modern day Russia.
Right. And then they have to go into Russia for the latter part of it, of course,
Hmm.
and
But
do
yeah,
proper Russia.
that film had like an element of black comedy to the way the state runs, which this film did a little bit. Like at the start, there's the scene where the one guy is joking about the state, and then they threaten him, but then like, oh, I'm just joking too. And then am I right that he was in the letter opening room at the end with the other guy?
Yes, you're
So
right.
he really was punished for that, even though they pretended they
Uh-huh.
were joking.
That was a brilliant scene because that's exactly where you get when you can't say when you really like people say on the internet you can't say anything. Nah, dude, this is what it's like when you can't say anything. You think you
Yes.
made a joke, you make a joke that's innocent, you think that someone's mad at you, then they say, haha, no, I'm not mad, and then you end up in a basement for 4 years,
Hmm.
Or longer.
you know, or longer.
But
Yeah, if the
luckily the
wall
wall
doesn't come
fell.
down. Yeah, seriously.
Yeah, you got the wall was
Um,
a boon in that case, right?
yeah. So it's
Well, I
like
guess it
this,
was for a lot of people. That's the whole point of it.
And then
yeah, the
obviously the fact that he's investigating this artist, but not even really because there's any suspicion that he's against the state, literally just because this politician fancies his girlfriend, basically.
Yeah. But the thing that I felt kind of was a little off or schmaltzy or cheesy about this is that it's a writer, the writer of this film wrote a writer who writes, and the guy spying on the writer is inspired to let the writer
Yeah.
go and write more
Wow, this
writing.
writer is such a great and important man that he must be saved.
Yeah, and I didn't really feel like, I mean, I like Weaseler, I love the actor. I didn't necessarily get a picture of what changed inside of him, if anything. He just sort of quietly just lets it go. And
That's probably what that more realistic though. You have a
yeah,
horrible job you're doing, and you're just doing it one day, and is this really what I should be doing?
Well, and like I
yeah,
said, it seems like it really did resonate with people who are in the intelligence world.
I guess
yeah,
especially Hollywood, so often makes it
Yeah,
seem like there
maybe.
has to be the big break, that moment, the
Yeah,
it
we're
moment.
used to James Bond falls in love with this beautiful woman that he's meant to be spying on or whatever. And
yeah,
it's this big dramatic moment. But maybe it is more like you just spend all day, every day watching someone's life. You find it impossible to want to kill them anymore.
yeah. Like I joke often about how I think the Mandalorian is probably going to end where someone tells the Mandalorian this is the way, and he says, "This isn't the way. This isn't the way at all."
Mm.
It's like I'm
And
like
then he
that's
does like a
definitely gonna
Charles
happen.
Chaplin speech at the end of Great Dictator, but it's not actually about
Yeah.
anything political, except in Star Wars terms.
I mean, he'll
Yeah, it's
probably
full of
use the
completely
force or something.
meaningless things like. And then I remember as we were leaving Disney, Matt, do you remember the song they were playing? And it's just like, hope can be a dream if you dream that hope is real. And it's like,
Oh,
this
that's
is
Disney
literally,
speak at this point.
yeah, it's literally just empty platitudes. It means nothing.
Yeah,
None of
Disney's the
these words in
king of
order
that.
mean
They are the
anything.
king of that. Yeah.
Hmm.
I feel like maybe my soul was scooped out a little bit when I found out that it was just basically that Disney wanted a nice park to take his kids to, because he took his kids to a park that was dirty, and he was like, and also he wanted a model train in his backyard that he could ride around, and just all
That's
that
why you still
came
can't drink
together.
in Disneyland.
Honestly, this just made me like Disneyland more.
Eh,
Because before
I
I assumed it was just he wanted to make a shitload of cash. But if
yeah.
it was just like, man, it'd be nice if there was a cool park and it had a train. I
Yeah.
respect that as a motivation a lot more.
Yeah, I wish he'd gotten to build his actual city, but then that would have been a lot like East Germany.
Yes, that would be a company town ran by one of the more evil corporations.
Yes. And Roy Disney would have been the one running it, so it would have been like, well, anyway. I think Roy
Hmm.
Disney did want to make money, but he also, I think Roy Disney was also just trying to clean up Walt's
Oh
financial
yeah, he
mess.
retired a few years late just because he was like, well, I guess someone's got to like at least half-ass finish this. We're
Yeah.
not building that city though. That's off the table.
But they did build a Celebration, which is terrifying and not fun. There was a
No,
murder there.
they don't own it anymore, by the way. It's
They
now
don't?
just
Okay.
it still has
Interesting.
weird self-governing or laws or whatever. Like it's still in that weird space of a bizarro town, but I don't believe that they really own it anymore.
Yep. Well, it was the Todd family murders was a multiple homicide case that occurred in December 2019 in Disney's planned community of Celebration, Florida. Anthony Tony Todd, age 44, confessed to the murders of his wife, 42-year-old Megan Todd, and their three children, Alec, age 13, Tyler, age 11, and Zoe, age
Sorry, did
4.
you just say
I'm sad now.
42-year-old Megatod?
Megan. Sorry.
Oh,
That'd
Oh.
be cool if he had to kill a much larger version of himself. Also, he killed the dog. Man, that's
That's
bad. That's a
rude.
really bad one.
I
Yeah.
don't even know what Celebration is. Is it like a Disney town they tried to
It's like
build?
the Truman Show town,
Yes.
basically. But it didn't,
Yes.
Huh.
and but it's been 25 years, and now it's like, like somewhat dilapidated.
Mm.
It's like, what if your homeowners association was literally a part of Disney, but like a very, very active part of like a
It's kind
part
of
of
like living
Disney
in
that is
East
very
Germany.
concerned. Yeah, I think it is.
Is it?
I think
Did they film One Division there?
they should
Maybe.
have. Uh, but yeah, this is, I have, of course, mixed feelings because I of course want to condemn this entire thing as super horribly evil, and but at the same time I don't have like a reference point. This is so
The
unlike.
um the comment I heard of why this film was not so accurate. Um, so the main character, like Weasler, gets to like hide the evidence, help this guy out, let him get away with it. But like nobody was being spied on more than like the Stasi agents themselves.
Interesting.
He would have had no ability to do something like that. There would have been a
Huh.
guy spying on him and a guy spying on the guy spying on him.
Yeah. Well, I also feel like it would it would have to be a little more casual. I guess we're only following a guy who is being heavily surveilled because he's a playwright and all
Yeah.
that. But it's like I feel like it would be at least a little more lax than this, because it feels like everyone on screen is always terrified all the time.
Yeah,
But
and
yeah,
it
I
and
guess
it is
that
this
like
guy's like I want to bone his girlfriend. So it's
Yeah.
it's not top priority by any means.
yeah, we're seeing people who are basically they're stressed out because this one douchebag politician has threatened their livelihoods and possibly lives to blackmail this guy so that he can bang his girlfriend.
Yeah, specifically to bang a famous actress who
Mm-hmm.
um who unfortunately she's just put in compromising situation after compromising situation, and then dies by running in front of a truck after her partner has written an article about how much suicide there is in East
She
Germany.
definitely has like she had quite a good screen presence and
Yeah,
was definitely more interesting than the writer.
I I kind of agree, and yeah,
Like
it
a
was
more interesting film would have made her a bit more of the focal point instead of him. But I guess like that's this is the guy's first film. It's a dude writing a woman. These are all pretty standard errors that you expect him to make.
yes, it's like that. What? How do you show a tragedy is like fridge the guy's girlfriend over and over,
Yep.
which is
She literally has the old she runs into the street distraught and gets hit by a truck.
mhm.
Like that's bad on a soap opera, let alone a top 100 masterpiece movie.
Yeah, at first when it started in university, I was like, "Oh, is this going to be evil Goodwill Hunting?" It really wasn't, but
Well, that gets
um,
back to Bad Will Hunting.
yeah, this is Bad Will Hunting. No, it's yeah, she was a very interesting character, and I mean, yeah, nothing. I feel like I'm not supposed to complain about anything that befalls any of these characters because it's supposed to be just endless tragedy, but it's uh,
Yeah, but
doesn't.
endless tragedy without artistry just becomes like a bad joke.
I think I brought it
Like
up before, but oh, go
when
ahead.
we were talking about Requiem for a Dream, right? It's just like it's
Yeah,
so relentlessly bleak that you don't care.
yeah,
This
and
isn't that. I actually expected this film to go bleaker. Like the way the ending is shot, it's like it's a big twist, but the twist is just, oh, this was a nice guy and he helped me out. Whereas you expect that to
yeah.
be like some like, oh man, she was spying on me from the start, like a gut punch twist.
And also it's worth pointing out that at the end we see the guy find the guy who definitely was responsible for him not going to the gulag, and he drives off and then dedicates a book to him. He could have been like, "Hey man, here's $100," and
Yeah, he's
anything.
got a job like he's got the job that I had when I was 13, where you wheel
Yeah,
a little trolley along and deliver leaflets nobody's interested in.
yeah, it does seem like a little bit, well, that's what celebrities do, but because I would think that Jörg Dryman would have a decent amount of money at that point. I don't know. Maybe when the wall falls,
Well,
you're broke.
they do say he hasn't written since the wall fell.
Yeah, I guess he didn't
So
make
I
any
think it's
money before that.
after this he makes his money when he writes the book. Yeah.
Uh,
Although he somehow still has his own driver and everything, so I guess he's doing okay. But
Yeah, and the guy has to buy the book, and it's like 30 euros.
I assume that was still like Deutschmarks.
Oh yeah, maybe 30 Deutschmarks. Okay, that's probably a little bit less. I don't know.
Yeah, €30 is a lot for a book today, let alone in like '92 or whenever that was.
Yeah.
Now, as far as artists and totalitarian states, I've brought it up on the podcast before, I think, but that's why I
Mm.
find Shostakovich really fascinating because, oh, here's a symphony he wrote when he was expecting to get a bullet in the back of the head from the KGB. Oh, here's one he wrote when Stalin loved him. Here's one he wrote when Stalin hated him. And he thought he was going to maybe just get thrown to jail this time, not killed.
Oh, so that's a point, Matt. This film has like a significant piece of music. How did you rate it?
Oh, how did I rate it?
The last time I remember us having like a
Yeah,
named
I think I
symphony was back in Cloud Atlas. So
yeah, I like it actually said that was kind of the genesis scene for this movie, according to the wiki for the director. Like he thought that idea was fascinating that the listening spy would be moved by music like that. Um, I don't know. It didn't really. It wasn't. It wasn't like this is crap, but it didn't. I can remember what Cloud Atlas sounds like right now.
yeah, I guess
I
they
just
wanted to
remember.
have they needed to have the this composer commit suicide to move the plot forward or whatever. But I think you got to be really confident in your composer to write into the script that his music is so moving it changes the world. If you
Also,
don't
in
have
here, you
that,
hear it like two or
why not just have him hear like existing music and he hasn't heard it before because the state banned it, right?
maybe
He
maybe
could have
that's
just
what Germans
actually
are
been
into. because Cloud Atlas was also a German production. Like, hey, we this is where all the composers come from, Germany, Austria, right? So we could
Hmm.
do it. Cloud Atlas also
Mhm.
plays that piece like 8,000 times, and this plays it like a couple, you know?
Yeah, and like one of those times is like him playing it badly on his own piano. So
Right, right. So that factors in. But yeah, I mean,
Um,
it's not a set. I mean, Cloud Atlas, it's an absolutely central plot point. Here, it's like, C plot. I mean,
hmm.
the main fact is just this: his friend committed suicide. It didn't really matter.
Yes,
He
yeah, yeah,
says
yeah.
he's talented. It doesn't actually matter if he is talented.
well, my favorite whatever Eastern Bloc artists or Plastic People of the Universe. Are you guys familiar with them at all?
Mm-mm.
Like Matt, I feel like you should be familiar with them.
I've heard the name before,
Or-
like probably from your mouth, to be perfectly honest, but to be
They're from
perfectly
Prague.
plastic.
They were basically an illegal band. They went around like smuggling all their instruments to parties, and they weren't. I guess you weren't supposed to have a band at all, but
Did they have a
they had
drummer?
a lot. They had a drummer who was an incredibly like sick drummer, and like a lot of horns, and they kind of sounded like if the Muppets were playing evil jazz with a man like kind of yelling check over it.
Okay.
It's very menacing, their early work. I recommend checking it out. It
Everything's on
looks like
YouTube.
they have now done the Beach Boys thing to split into two different groups because they disagree with each other for some reason and are now two different bands.
Every
But
group divides into new bands, given enough years.
yeah,
Including
but
most communist parties.
yeah, that's a good point.
Well,
And
yeah.
That's why the
most
left always messes up because they can't agree on anything.
Who knows?
Whereas
Maybe
the
in
yeah,
right is
2 years.
just like, hate minorities? Yeah. Oh, I hate minorities too. Do our policies align? Who cares?
yeah, I have right now to date this podcast, Joe Biden has just dropped out of the presidential race, and I have a lot of friends on Facebook that are very angry about some of the potential nominees. So yep.
Okay.
And I mean, with there are plenty of reasons to be angry about a lot of them, but we'll hopefully pull something together.
I
Hmm.
mean, the prospect of Kamala Harris and Keir Starmer being our quote unquote left, and they
Yep.
both come from a background of like being prosecutors,
Yes.
is not filling me with great hope. Like, yeah, sure, I guess it is better than Trump and the Tories, but
Yeah.
I
with
enjoy
Yeah.
very,
watching this
very
all from
relative
Japan.
terms. Well, both the assassination attempt and Biden's resignation, I found out about through memes and had to reverse engineer.
Man.
I saw
Well,
like a dumbass meme and was like, wait, I think I know what this is referring to.
that's what the news is now. Yeah, the whole thing. I mean, I've listened to a podcast not too long ago about Ronald and Nancy Reagan about how they denied the AIDS crisis for so long,
Hmm.
and this is Behind the Bastards, by the way. It's a
Yeah,
decent series.
I've heard that series a bunch, and they've guessed it on
Yeah.
other stuff, and I keep meaning to start listening to it.
Yeah, but basically the thing he uncovered that he didn't expect to was that they had a lot of gay friends in the 70s and
Hmm.
had brought designers with them, from California to the White House. And it's basically the evangelicals just thrust a bunch of money in their face so they adopted those morals when really it's like Ronald Reagan was in a position to be a kind of like he probably could have been as progressive as Schwarzenegger and just didn't.
Well, the Republican National Convention is one of the biggest spikes in grinder activity
Yep.
in the yearly calendar. Like all
Like
the political parties are run by gays.
why can't they use Grinder to determine their nominee? Like just find the guy with the highest Grinder rating and make him the nominee. It'll probably be somebody like I don't know, it'd be like Matt Gates or something, and we'd be screwed. But uh,
At least he'll be hot.
yeah, well, hotter than Trump.
Such thing exist.
That's a good platform to run on. Hotter than Trump.
Yeah,
Mark, can
I'll
you
go.
tie a tie?
I have used an app to tie a tie a couple of times. Once I used an app to tie a tie and I just left the tie tied for 10 years. And I just when I would put the tie on, I would tighten it and loosen it and hang it up What was
I had a
tied?
tie as part of my school uniform from the age of 11, so I can tie a tie.
Well, obviously I didn't ask you because we have not cold biz season.
Do you remember Joe we used to work with, Matt?
Yeah.
He can't tie a tie.
Really? What did
He would loosen them, take them off, and hang them up, and then put them back
Oh
on, tie them
yeah,
up.
okay, that sounds like a
Yeah,
So
the
Joe.
Mark method.
at a party, Rob held his arms and I undid his tie.
This is true. There are pictures of this when I was a little kid. My parents got me a clip-on bow tie, and there are pictures of me as a small child with a red bow tie, and it looks very ridiculous.
Oh, I
I
can't tie a
haven't
bow
done
tie.
it in a while, but I can tie a bow tie as well.
Okay.
I learned to for my prom,
No, when I
and
do
then
an
I would do it
orchestra.
occasionally when Matt Smith was the doctor.
There, yeah.
No, when I do orchestra, I have a clip-on bow tie.
I remember
All
when
right.
I went to prom, they gave me a clip-on bow tie and a real one because they were like, "Look, just wear the clip-on one." But then when the party, drags on later in the night, switch for the real one so you can have it loose like you've undone it.
That's
And I
when
was
you
like, "No,
go.
that sounds pretentious. I'm just going to do up the real one."
Yeah, when you go in for the shag later, you just pull it and go. It looks
Yeah,
really
so
cool.
it looks like you're a cool dude, like Bond at the end of the night. Yeah.
Yep.
No, if you want to be a cool dude, you're getting ready to shag. You flip off the clip on, pull out of your pocket the other one, slowly put it around your neck. Girl's gone.
You pull out
Guy's
the
gone.
clip on and tie up the real bow tie in its place.
What you do
And we
is you
slip
take
into
the clip
something
on.
less comfortable.
You take the clip on and you put it in your hair. And
Mm.
then you take the other one and then you just loosen it and you start tying around your neck, and then you kind of like stand up on a stool and you take that near the and you're like, "Hey, are you into autoerotic asphyxiation? Can you help me with this?"
Well, see,
And
back then I
then
had
she's
hair to
gone.
put a tie into.
Yeah, me too. Anyway, I skipped my proms, both of them.
I went
I
to the
skipped.
first one and I technically had a date, but I was too shy to talk to her and we didn't talk the whole night.
Uh,
But by my actual 18-year-old senior prom, she was my girlfriend.
all
And
right.
you can drink at 18 in the UK, so our prom was a big piss up.
Oh, wow. Yeah,
I actually ended up in the after party in there was a bar in my town that sort of had a dance floor, so it kind of became a small nightclub later at night. And me and my history teacher, who was a Scottish lady, were linked arm in arm singing I Would Walk 500 Miles.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, I just skipped my prom to play with my band at a crappy club, my crappy band. So that's not as good of a story because should have just gone to I don't know. If I'd gone to the prom, I wouldn't have had a date, so it wouldn't have mattered really. But um,
You could
did
be
not.
your own date.
I never dated anyone I went to school with. I always would date people from other schools.
Yeah, oh right, yeah, girls in Canada, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Girls from East Germany. I never met one.
So
But yeah. So I mean, what I feel like we've been dancing around it. Like, how do you guys feel about this movie? I like it, but I don't love it.
Yeah, I like
that
you.
sounds
You
about
said
right.
made that comment at the start where you were like, "Oh, I thought it was going to be schmaltzy," and I do think it was quite schmaltzy. Like,
Yeah.
I think this is a film that is like, if it was just an English language film, people would be like, "Oh, it's fine, it's okay, it's a little bit cheesy, it's a little bit basic." I think a lot of people have tricked themselves into thinking it's cleverer than it is because it's in German.
Huh. And I think it's 2006, and this is like Crash era. I think Crash came out the same year.
Mm.
So it kind of is like that. It kind of is. I mean, not the good Crash with the
Yeah, I was
with the
about to say,
car
are you trying to
theft.
say it's a bad year for film? Is that what you're getting at?
No, that was
It's the year before
2004.
Transformers, right?
It is the
So
year before Transformers.
films hadn't
Yes.
Before,
even been
yeah.
born yet. The film industry
we're
was still in its infancy.
we're still in an era where it's things are kind of post 9/11 serious, but not like we haven't. I don't know. It felt like all of our bad movies that I've really hated have been from this era. They've all been like 2007,
I definitely don't hate this.
I don't either. I'm just saying.
I'm glad I watched this film. I think it is a good film.
Yeah.
I
I
don't think
have
it's a top 100 film of all time.
No, it's just that this is from whatever era that I think it's from the same era as like The Fog or The
Yeah,
Wicker
but this
Man.
this
And I'm
is
not
shot
saying that
nicely. This is
this
like
is
there's like
it's
beautiful shots of like these old streets with the street lights and people creeping here and there.
Quite
It
muted,
didn't
but that
feel
could be
like
the
a
place.
yeah, but even when it's muted, it was like warm tones. It wasn't just like gray.
yeah. It's true. I mean, it looks better than those films. And I'm not really comparing it to those films, but there's
Hmm.
something about this era, the specifically, from like the late 90s, from the Phantom Menace until Transformers. Like I
Hmm.
feel like that era, I'm not sort of lukewarm about it at best. And I
I see.
don't know how to explain it better than that.
I can
It's
tell
it's
you exactly where this film lies in my universe because again in high school and university I was in my full film dork phase and I would go to see the Oscar winners and the art house darlings and I would have seen this and somewhere around the mid 2000s I realized you know what I think I'm going to focus on watching movies I like or think look interesting.
hmm.
Uh, so I would watch this if it was like a 1998 release, but yeah, I didn't watch it by this time because by then I was like, I mean, I still want to watch arty films sometimes, but it's like I want to watch the arty films that actually look interesting to me now. Which, well, now I'm not because we do this podcast. But again, that's the point of the podcast
Yeah.
to reconfront this kind of film for me, I guess.
Yeah, this is the kind of film I would not have watched without this podcast.
I think that's the same for
Yeah.
everyone. That's why when we started, I was like, did
But
anyone
like
use this
you were
suggestion
you were
for
like
last
that on
week?
this specific film, but I wouldn't even have watched this kind of film.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
even I probably, I love foreign films. I probably would not have seen the description of this and been like, "Oh, I'm gonna sit down and watch this on this Thursday night or something."
I actually
It's
think the description of this film missold it.
hmm,
The description I read everywhere was that it's about like, oh, it's about a spy who starts spying on a couple and becomes too invested in their life, and it makes
mhm,
it sound like a sort of a sexy, edgy thriller.
Fatal Attraction.
yeah,
Yeah, and it's not that. Like he does become invested in their lives, but in like there is the scene where like they have sex and then he goes and shags a hooker. Um, but that's not really the tone of the film. It's actually more of like a sweet. He like falls in love with these people and wants to protect them more so than like
yeah.
maybe it would have. I don't know, but I think there is like a context to this film, which maybe explains why some people put it so highly on the list or rate it so highly. Like people aren't manually putting it on a list, but they're rating it. And I think like the East German context and the sort of the aftermath it had could explain some of that. Um, and we don't really have that context to put it in. But just taking it on its own, it's like a I don't know, like a 7 out of 10 film. It's
Yeah, I'd
like I
agree
would
with that.
watch it, I would not regret watching it. I would say, oh yeah, that was pretty good, but it didn't blow me away. I didn't come
That's
away
where
from
I
it
was.
like,
Yeah.
oh wow, that
I,
twist really got me, or man, that performance was incredible. It was like, oh yeah, everyone did their job, and the film was adequate.
It is a film. It's just not
yeah,
necessarily a
it's
film that I go out of my way to watch.
Yeah, it's
it
making me react the way Germans react to things. Like, yeah, it was acceptable. That was
yes,
adequate.
it was very adequate. Yes,
It's
no, it
like
was
me and Matt have a German colleague, and he was talking about like he missed pretzels, and his wife made him some pretzels, and he was like, "Yeah, but they're not as good as in Germany." Did you tell her that? Of course.
yeah, this has a tone of something where if there was like a crazy violent murder at the end, you wouldn't be surprised, but it doesn't.
Mm.
The tension is all, what is someone going to say or
Well, yeah,
find
it's
out?
that is the tension of living in that world, right? So I guess it captures that
Yeah.
well.
So yeah, yeah, maybe we're
Maybe the
used
problem
to.
was that the people, like the whole artist crowd that we see, I didn't find interesting or likable.
Yeah, I've had writer's block, and well, also I've not only I had writer's block for a lot of the last several years, but also if you write a play now, you probably won't make any money at all. You might
Mm.
put it on TikTok and you get a million views, and maybe you'll get to shill for Casper mattresses or something like that. I don't know. Like we're in a very different
You
all
write a play
endorsements
these
now,
days to sell
baby.
it to Hollywood eventually and make your money that way.
Yeah, it's like
Or
we're
because
in a
you love the art,
different
right?
Make the coins they toss you.
yeah, I'm not terrified by the idea that I'll lose my career as a Stasi agent, or that I'll lose my career as a playwright, or that I'll lose my career as an actor, because those careers are very rare and often come with a lot of
I feel
respect.
like there's 99% of people doing those careers are doing them as a hobby for fun, and
Mhm.
1% are making a living from it.
Yeah, sort of like this podcast, how we
Whereas
are putting a lot
Patrick's,
of work.
I recently just finished Patrick Stewart's autobiography, and he's talking about like the 50s, 60s, 70s when there was like a big theater scene and you could be a working actor, and he wasn't making like mad money, but he was making a living wage just doing a different Shakespeare play every month and stuff. And I know that does still exist, but probably not to the same degree.
Well, I
But
know
maybe I don't
people
know. Maybe I'm just a Philistine who doesn't go to the theater.
Well, I mean, I know people who have worked occasionally as extras on films, who are among the people who signed paperwork unknowingly giving Warner Brothers or whoever the right to scan them and then to use AI to put them in any film ever forever for
Yeah.
eternity. So, that's there's a lot of 5D, 6D chess going on, and generally, workers. That's part of why there's kind of a I don't know if there's a big leftist movement, or if I just feel like I'm in the middle of a lot of leftists, but it's like a lot of
Unionize, unionize,
nice,
unionize.
nice. But that's the thing, is that a
Me and
lot of
Mark are
that
going to
is
unionize
happening.
against Matt.
Oh no.
Yes. Now you're
Actually,
gonna have
union
to
rules
give us
tell us
time
you
off.
can't make us do 3 films in a week.
But yeah, it's like the reason part of the reason that is coming up is because we're getting scammed left and right by everything, and things are like McDonald's is charging $12 for a Happy Meal, and the
And
car
paying
market is
$8 an
insane,
hour to its staff.
and they're building crappy looking buildings. Massive
Yeah.
amounts of homes are being constructed and just sat on by investment companies and priced out
Just
of
yeah,
the
just
reach of
corporate
anyone.
greed has gone insane, and yet there's still so many toadies willing to defend billionaires.
Of course. I mean,
It's
there are
insane.
people willing to defend McDonald's for charging I mean, this is a very niche like a niche topic, but I mean, I'm into like sort of there's an emulation offshoot that's simulation of hardware, and there's a
Mm,
board made by Intel where they've been charging, I don't know, $280 for it, and it can run a lot of different like old arcade games and systems,
mm.
and someone's making a clone of it for $100. And for years people have been like, well, what do you expect, they're subsidizing it, you're never going to get one for less than $280, because people are just defending this like profiteering that's going on, when
Mhm.
no one actually understands how little it actually costs to manufacture this hardware. And
I
now
recently listened to an interview with a guy, Simon Miller. He does like games content, but he briefly worked at Sony. He was writing like the manuals on PS1 games or PS2 games. And he said like the very first week he went in, they had a meeting about the PS2 memory cards. And they were like, yeah, we've basically got the manufacturing down to like 70 cents, but we're
Mhm.
still going to charge $20 for
Of course. And
them.
even now, people will be like, if you say something on the internet like, I might buy a PS5, but I feel like it should be less than $500 4 years after it came out, people will be like, well, what do you expect? It costs a lot to make it. It's advanced,
Yeah, and
people
like games
anything.
companies charge $70 for the game and then charge you microtransactions and this and that. And
Yeah.
people love to say, well, it's because games are expensive to make. And it's like, A, they're not that they're making a lot of profit. B, I didn't ask them to make games this expensive. Like the most successful games of the last couple of years, Minecraft and Fortnite, don't look like PS5 super graphics games.
That's true. I mean, Grand Theft Auto made like $500 billion, the most recent one of those.
And it's still a
And
PS3 game, basically, that they're selling you again and again.
yeah, and you can generally play the online component for free forever. And
But anyway, Mark, there's
yeah.
no point complaining about any of this because it's literally your only choices are this or East Germany.
Well, I guess I choose this. I mean, I guess I choose this because you know what? I
There's
do.
no middle ground. There's no democratic socialism that can exist. It's Soviet Russia
Yeah.
or RoboCop. Those are the two
Well,
possibilities for your future.
well, a lot of times you're arguing with someone on the internet and they will tell you that you literally are in East Germany because you told them, "Hey, don't say that racist thing."
Hmm.
What is this? East German? You know, it's like, oh, I can't, I can't just throw slurs out. What is this? Like as if you could throw slurs out in America 40 years ago. You know,
Speaking of
you
Oh,
throwing
I'm pretty
slurs,
sure you could in America
well
60
behind,
years
you
ago.
know, quietly. Yeah, but you wouldn't do it on television, you know what I mean? Like it
Hmm.
wouldn't be like you wouldn't go super public with it. But Matt, I'm assuming you found one of the two one-star
the
reviews.
two one-star reviews, neither of which really address the movie. The first one's nice and
Mhm.
short though. Cornball marshmallow movie. This movie is too powdered down for me to watch. I tried watching it, but can't get past 7 or 8 minuets into the film. Just watch something better, like paint drying. 6 out of 67 found that helpful. They only watched the first 7 or 8 minutes of the movie, so that doesn't count, does it?
Okay, I
It's
call.
it's slow paced, but it's not that boring. I
No,
I
I wasn't
wouldn't like.
bored.
Yeah, this is a 2 hour 17 minute, and I was pretty much gripped.
Yeah, that for all the things I've complained about, I was not bored.
Yeah,
It
yeah,
was
none of it. I don't think any of us are sitting here saying it's a poorly made film.
No, again, it was necessity, but I did watch in one sitting.
Hmm.
um okay, I call the next one then.
Okay.
Is this supposed to be a movie of 1984 by George Orwell? This is in 2013. Is this supposed to be a movie of 1984 by George Orwell? If this director or writer made this movie with that intention, it is not bad. But if the director or the writer claims that this is their original, then it is the worst ever. I just cannot believe no one talks about that this movie is exactly the same as 1984 novel by George Orwell. Every single aspect, fact that the secret police wants to know everything, so they eavesdrop all their conversation, and the list goes on and on. In fact, one person on Rotten Tomato mentioned about Brazil by Terry Gilliam. Terry also said that he never read the book on an interview. I thought it was the biggest lie. He should really be ashamed of what he made. That is the biggest bullshit. Even if you didn't read the book, other people must have read the book. I cannot believe he didn't get sued for that movie. And this movie is even worse. At least Terry made it to be a little different, but this movie even starts at year 1984. How crazy is that? How can no one see that? And everybody is talking about how creative it is because George Orwell wrote it 60 years ago. I am just so terrified at North Americans' inability to read anything and saying what is really creative. What a joke. 13 out of 136 found this helpful.
I know it's like they should have found like a real historical situation to base the movie on, and then they wouldn't be ripping off George Orwell.
My favorite is just someone working themselves into a frenzy saying one thing over and over again.
Yeah,
Mark, did you read 1984 by George Orwell?
I did, but it's been so long that I really need to
yeah.
reread
I
it. I
haven't read
barely
it since
remember
high
it.
school, but I did read it.
I
I
I
guess
was more of an Animal Farm person because Animal Farm is like,
shorter.
well, it's
It's
I
funny.
feel like it's more clever, if that
Yeah,
makes any
there is
sense.
a
Very-
there's a great tweet that I see sometimes where it's like, I went on a date with a guy and he asked me my favorite. Well, I told him I was reading Animal Farm, and he told me I should stop reading children's books.
No, my most read books, not counting any comic books, which there's runs of comic books I probably read like too many times, but I think my most read books are 1984, Shock
Hmm,
Value by John Waters, and Star Trek Memories by William Shatner, and Star Trek Movie
hmm,
Memories by William Shatner. Not really by William
huh.
Shatner, but his name's
My
on the
most
front.
read books are Dune and The War of the Worlds.
Oh, yours are classier than mine. What do you know?
I
I
think
mean, oh, George Orwell's up there.
Yeah, but then the other two are William Shatner and John Waters.
I read William Shatner's Star Trek Memories once, so I haven't like
Did
reread
you read
them.
it 5 times though?
No.
I I think my most read books are
Oh,
Watchmen.
my all-time most read book is Bart Simpson's Guide to Life, because I used to read that over and over as a kid.
Ah,
Or my
yeah,
Calvin and Hobbes
Oh
collections.
yeah, I wasn't thinking of,
yeah.
as I said, I wasn't thinking of children's books either. Comic books and children's. Not that I'm saying comic books are children's books, but those are things you might read like dozens of times, right? I'm talking about things
Yeah.
where you have to make the effort.
Hmm.
Yeah, for me, my most read books are Watchmen by Alan Moore and Brave New World by Aldous Huxley, which, there is an entire book dedicated to how America, at least, is far more like in danger of heading into the world of Brave New World than the world of 1984. And I do agree with that
I've
because
probably read Brave New World one less time than 1984.
we are, I am personally, I went through sort of a midlife crisis where I was like, I'm not going to ever be able to play all the video games I want to play. And now I'm going through midlife crisis where I've spent a lot too much time playing video games.
Oh,
I know that.
and the reason I've read Brave New World slightly less than 1984 is because when I was not e-reading, when I was still doing paper books, I could not find my copy of Brave New World, so it did not get read that particular cycle.
Well, yeah, that was my shit. Demolition
Mark,
Man.
Mark.
Hmm? Oh no, what are you playing?
I played Splatoon and I've been this whole time.
Ah, awesome. I'm
Have I got that
definitely,
midlife crisis coming for me? Who knows?
I don't know. But it's just there's so much to play. I haven't
I,
finished Shadow of the
I've
Erdtree yet.
I finished it yesterday.
So, Mark, you
Ah,
need to live
cool.
in East Germany. They didn't have so much for you
I'm
to play. There might have been like two or three, like real analog games for you.
No, I've
ours
the way I've come to terms with that is I've just leaned really hard into I like what I like, and I can skip a lot of other things.
Yeah, I'll
Right, and
just
that's why
say
this
it.
movie wasn't on my radar till recently.
Hmm.
I
Well,
I
that's why
have
none of these movies were, unless they had a robot or a dinosaur in them.
yeah, I've carefully curated a small backlog of things that I know I will play soon, which include Monster Hunter Rise, which I've played some of, and I have
Mm.
Yakuza 0, Yakuza Like a Dragon, Hi-Fi Rush, Near Automata, and a couple other things, and Armored Core 6. I'm gonna play that too.
And
I
you'd
do
be
have internet and stuff now, so when you get a monster, let me know.
Good. Okay, I will. I need to get back into it after my midlife crisis is over and I finish Shadow Retreat. But
but just think you'd be free of all of this living in East Germany.
That's
you're
true.
right. Maybe that's the answer. So everyone
Maybe I
who's
just need to let the state choose what I do with my time, and then I'll feel happier.
yes, everyone who is mostly around my age in this film, the main character seems so much happier than I am.
So, see, the
Uh,
movie was too schmaltzy for you in the end.
yeah,
I guess we should wrap it up, especially since Luke has to go to the denta.
of
Yeah.
course. Well, if you want to if you want to live in East Germany, then check out our block over at patreon.com/podcastio podcastius. You can throw us some Deutschmarks for some DOS server bills. You can check out other fine DOS podcasts such as Podcast 1999, Game Show about games, Luke Loves Pokemon, Time Enough podcast about the Twilight Zone, Occult Disney,
I
Monster
think,
Mash, and Hyrule Field Report are on the backlog. And I think did I say all of them? Did I say all
yeah,
of
sure.
them? I think
Yeah,
I
just
did.
keep thinking about that. So do you guys want to gift wrap this podcast?
No, it's for me. All of my podcasts are for me. I care little for the listeners.
Yeah, same, honestly.
There's my cut.
That was,
Okay.
that was great. I didn't even think about that. You guys just threw it right out.
That's why we're pros that don't make any money.
Don't worry. People will find our work in 100 years.
There we go.
There's a I hate to bring up the Big Bang Theory,
Mm.
but one actual good joke they did once was when she's doing her budget, whatever, and it's like, oh, do you need to pay this much for acting lessons? She's like, yeah, I'm a professional actress. So, oh, have you taken paid work? You don't know what professional means.
Yeah, I hate to say that did show up on a house where I was dog sitting some dogs, and there were a couple of decent jokes. Like it was weird how cruel Sheldon was. So I was like, is it
Yeah,
always that he's just a complete asshole to everyone? That's
it's
like the joke.
insanely inconsistent how anyone on that show is written.
Yeah, I need to
Okay.
watch Chernobyl and hope that's as
Yes,
much
you
fun.
do.
For a second, I genuinely thought you were going to say, I need to watch Young Sheldon.
You need to watch Young Sheldon.
Get the
I've seen
lore,
I've
you
seen
know?
a couple of on Instagram. I've seen a couple of people just take young Sheldon clips and like mutate them horribly, so they're just like fucked up.
Spoiler: his father dies at the end.
What's his
Yeah, he's
father's
dead in
name?
the Big
Old
Bang
Sheldon.
Theory.
Right. I just saw a news article that said they killed the father in the next to last episode, so the last
Yeah.
episode would be more fun.
Well, I saw an article where like the actor who plays the grandmother or something was like, I don't know why they cancelled it. It could have run it. It was making money. It's like, do you not understand the concept that it's a prequel and it was about to catch up with the original?
Did either of you guys watch that file of the lives of others that I uploaded? I didn't bring
Yeah,
this
I
up
did
in the
actually.
podcast.
Oh,
Did
I
Did you notice
watched.
weird audio on some of it?
No, I
I
noticed a couple of typos in the um subs and stuff, but I didn't notice anything too weird
I
in the
watched
audio.
something else.
It might
I
be my
started
own
something else, but the website's been a pain
coder.
in the ass, so I went and watched
Mm.
Mark's.
Yeah, I don't know. It was weird. Like when there was background music, it was weird, and it
I
might be my
watched.
computer.
I
I
guess I
watched.
wasn't paying super close attention to the audio because I was reading subs, but
I
I
watched a
didn't notice
two
anything too
gigger,
weird.
so I guess it was in slightly better
Huh.
quality than some.
There was that one bit where the kid was in the elevator with him. He sounded like a Dalek.
Yes, that's what I'm talking about. Sometimes when secondary characters would talk, it'd be like, it would be like weird. I don't know what the hell is going on.
Maybe it's
Okay.
just bad ADR.
I'm assuming it was like the surround channel was mixed in, and the surround channel was fucked up somehow. But
Yeah,
I don't
possibly.
know. I'm one of those people I obsess on like why the thing happened. Just
Why?
just like Sheldon probably is,
Mm.
right?
This is me and Matt recorded Twilight Zone yesterday, and it was all him like, but the music was so off-putting. I was like, I didn't really pay attention to it.
How bad was the bard?
I thought it was like the least offensive of the comedy episodes.
I thought the soundtrack
Okay.
was so bad I had trouble dealing with it because someone will give a comic monologue and they'll say one line, and then they'll say another line, and then they'll say something else, and that's like the whole show.
Oh, that's why people hate it then.
I
Okay, that
think
makes
that I'd
perfect
say that on a
sense.
podcast.
It's
Okay.
a good script that's been fucked by the direction.
All right, cool. I'm
Let me
catching
hit the
up.
record on this. Goodbye, world.
Goodbye.